All right, everyone. This is Rabbi Bolton. I thought I would, I figured logically, why should I keep making new classes? I mean, I have classes from last year, right? And they're on the same topic, on the Torah portion of the week. Huh? So why should I make new classes all the time? I'll just use the old material that I had and I'll put it up, right? That's a pretty good idea. So I thought. But then somebody wrote to me and said, no, do new things all the time. And there's always new insights. And the fact is, I felt a little bit guilty by trying to make it easy. Here we're learning all these classes about Abraham, and he never tried to find the easy way out. And I'm talking about, how we have to be self-sacrificing. I'm doing exactly the opposite, and I'm doing it with the class itself. That's like shooting a man with his own gun. Okay, so I'll give a class. So tomorrow I didn't prepare the class today, tell you the truth. But I'll say something else. I'll say a speech about the Lubavitcher Rebbe that the Rebbe gave, and I'll put that up. And tomorrow we'll continue learning in this week's Torah portion, which is Vayera. In this week's Torah portion, by the way, it starts off pretty interesting. That God destroys Sodom and Amorah and three other cities that are over there. And he sends a couple of angels to destroy them, and he saves Lot. And then he comes in, and Abraham gets he gives birth, has a baby boy, Yitzchak, and everybody's happy. And then God tells him to sacrifice him, kill him. Pretty strange story. But let me just say something from last week. This is a speech of the Rebbe. This week's the last week's Torah portion introduces us to Abraham. And Abraham was the first Jew. And it starts off, it even says right in the beginning that Abraham was 75 years old when God told him, Lech Lecha. It says it clearly in the Torah, right? Shivim v'chamesh shana. So he was 75 years old. And God told him to Lech Lecha, to go. Now, the Rambam, Maimonides, when he's talking about the Torah, the laws, Judaism, what is Judaism? So he brings a whole long thing about Abraham, which why he has to do it is another question, because the Rambam, Maimonides, is just a book of cold, dry laws. So what do we have to do that? Of course, Judaism, if you want to explain Judaism in cold, dry laws, here we go. You want to describe Judaism in cold, dry laws, so you can do it. But Judaism itself is not cold and dry. Judaism itself, shalom. Let's see how we do this over here. Get the participants. Get to this. Oh. So Judaism itself is not cold and it's not dry. For instance, one of the commandments of Judaism is you have to love God with all of your heart and all of your soul and all of your might. And, love is a very essential part of our personalities. You have to be warm. You have to, find some value in something. So Judaism itself is not, let's see, we have this. How do I do this over here? 1 minute. Yes, so is this participants? 1 minute. I see there's somebody who wants to come in here. Here we go. Are you in? No. Didn't see me, doesn't hear me. There he goes. Okay. Parrots. Are you here? You hear parrots? I see that some people are trying to get in, and I don't know how to let you in. How do I let you in? There we go. Here we go. Okay. You hearing? You hear me? Here, let's do this like this over here. Let's unmute on this. I don't know. All right. So I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me, Parrots, Pinchas, I see you want to come
Okay,
in. Oh, good. Okay, good. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so we see. I started off. I had a little introduction, a sort of a how do you say an apology. I did not give the class. I thought I could just upload last year's class because it's on the same subject. And someone wrote to me, maybe it's you, that I shouldn't do that. I should make new classes all the time. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'll make new classes, but I didn't prepare a class. So I'll give you a class on something else. Here we go. Ready? Ready? About Abraham. This is a speech of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And we are introduced to Abraham, last week's Torah portion, for the first time. We talked about when Abraham was born, but we're introduced to Abraham as a human being when he's 75 years old. Now, before Abraham was 75 years old, there's a lot of stories of midrash and things like that, that Abraham was willing to be thrown into a fiery furnace, and that he had all other tests and difficulties. According to some opinion, the 10 tests that Abraham went through, there was 3 of them were before God told him to go Lech Lecha. He had to hide away when he was born. He had to hide away for like 13 years or 3 years or something like that in the house of his brother. And then afterwards, other difficulties he had, but that's not mentioned here. And interestingly enough, when we're talking about Noah, so it says that Noah was a Ish Sadiq Tamim, that he was a, one second, why is there only 2 people here? What happened to Paul? I saw 1 second. Paul was before he was here. I don't know. All right, anyway, okay. So what happened to the other 75 years before this? I mean, there was a lot of interesting stuff over there. And especially here we have the Torah. The Torah is supposed to be a book that, advertises Judaism and encourages Judaism. Here we got a nice juicy story about Abraham breaking all the idols in his father's house and defying Nimrod. Nimrod was like worshipped by everybody. Nimrod was the king of the world. And Abraham defied him, and he got thrown into a fiery furnace, and he lived. I mean, that's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. You don't get that every day. That's the type of thing you base religions on, huh? You want to be impervious to fire and, like Superman, faster than a speeding bullet. Those are things that impress people, that will draw people to Judaism, make the Jews proud of their Judaism. No, doesn't mention it. Doesn't mention it at all in the written Torah. It's mentioned in the oral Torah. But why not? Here we have this. So here we have the story that God tells Abraham to leave his house, leave his place of birth, leave his this. And then he says, I'm going to make you great, and I'll increase your name. You're going to be rich, and I'm going to be famous. You're going to have blessings. Why? Just because he left his house? That's a reason to make him great. Say because you went into a fiery furnace. It just completely ignores all that amazing accomplishments of Abraham and starts off with this thing that God tells him to leave where he is. And if you just move house, I'll make you great, and I'll give you blessings. So it doesn't make any sense. The whole thing doesn't really, make any sense. So the Rebbe explains like this. What's the unique thing of Judaism? The unique thing of Judaism is not the accomplishments of the people. It's not the talents and not the self-sacrifice. And of course, that's important. No doubt that's very important. But that's not the main thing. That's not the main thing. That's not the uniqueness of Judaism. We all know that there are people that are brave, that they're how do you say, altruistic, and they're self-sacrificing. People self-sacrificing for music, for art, for truth, all these different religions, right? People get burned on the stake and all this. The uniqueness of Judaism is that God spoke to Abraham. And Abraham did whatever God said. And God told Abraham to do these near impossible things. Things that would just go against the grain of any human being, and especially against Abraham, because he served God for 75 years. The main thing was that God spoke to him. That's the thing. That God spoke to Abraham. That's the essence of Judaism. That God spoke to him. The same thing with the Torah. The thing of the Torah is that God spoke to every single Jew. Whether the Jews listened, they didn't listen, whether they were smart, they were dumb, they were holy, they were not holy, that's of secondary importance. The primary importance is that God spoke. And that's where the last week's Torah portion starts off. Lech Lecha, it starts off with God speaking. God chose Abraham. He spoke to him. And this is relevant to every single Jew. In a way, it's relevant to every human being, because every human being that's alive is because God is creating him with his word, being created. But the Jewish people, they get the reason why God is created. And a lot of times the reason why is for these tests. Not because of their accomplishments, but because God tells them to do things that are difficult, and we do difficult things. And the tests, we know, in the little bit of the history of Judaism, the Jews have ample reason to leave Judaism and not doing Torah and the commandments. I mean, those Jews that do not keep Torah, they do not keep the commandments, right? They have very strong motivation and reasons, and how do you say, what do they call it, alibis for not doing Torah mitzvahs. What do we get from it? What do we get out of it? So the answer to it is it doesn't make any difference what we do and what we don't do and what we do. That's not the main thing. Of course it makes a difference, but that's not the main. The main thing is that God spoke to us and he told us, he chose us. He chose us. Therefore, says the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when you come up to a Jew and he doesn't know anything about Torah, and he doesn't know anything about the commandments, or he does know, he doesn't want to do them. Like I say, he has all these reasons and excuses and good excuses. Why not to do the Torah and the commandments? So said the Rebbe, it's not necessary to explain to him about the history and to logical and to make a debate with him and to conquer him with logic and with facts. And this is not necessary. Because the main reason that we do the commandments is not for any logical reason. It's because God commanded us. And every Jew knows that in the inside. Every Jew knows it in the inside of his soul, that the reason we do the commandments is because God commanded us. And it doesn't make any difference what happens in the middle, what happens in the past, what he thinks is going to be in the future. It has, or your talents, or your abilities, or your personality, or excuses, or you have, your Oedipus complexes, or whatever you have. You have troubles with the rabbis, and troubles with your parents, and troubles with this, and everybody lets you down. The whole world lets you down. And you're not such a smart person anyway, and you haven't got the power to stand up against these things. That you don't have to build yourself up, and you don't have to work on yourself. And every Jew wants to do the commandments, no matter who he is, because God is commanding it. And every Jew feels that commandment. And that's what happened on Mount Sinai. The Jews said, Na'aseh v'nishma. When God said, I'll give you the Torah, God said, okay, we'll do it, and then we'll understand it. And Abraham began this. He began this whole unique, if you want to call it craziness, which is called Judaism, by God choosing him and speaking to him. That's Lech Lecha. And that's going to be the theme of the whole entire Torah, that God is speaking to the Jewish people. It's not of utmost importance how the Jews act, how they react. The main thing is the eternal speaking commandment, faith that God has in us. And eventually that'll wake everybody up. That's the whole idea of the Moshiach. The Moshiach will just bring about that every Jew will have eyes to see and ears to hear this amazing love and promise and connection that God has with us. This was especially manifested in the Brit Milah, and the circumcision, and in God giving us the land of Israel. The land of Israel is an eternal physical land. The Brit Milah, circumcision, is put in our physical bodies to make an effect on this world, that God is not only creating the world, but he's also directing the world. And he's also testing us to see if we'll be willing partners in this perfection of the world. Because God can't do it, so to speak, on his own. He has to have us, with our own free will, do it. And for sure will. And that's the whole idea of Abraham, with his own free will, decided to do these awesome, frightening things in order to make the world better, in order to benefit all of humanity. says one of the reasons that God gave the Torah is lahetiv libriotov, is to benefit all of his creations. So when the Jewish people do what it says in the Torah and they do it properly with happiness, so that is a benefit to all mankind. And there's nothing happier than to be able to forget about negative things, to forget about selfishness, and to think about what the amazing blessings that we have, that God is giving us life and he's giving us a body and a soul and senses and abilities. He's creating us, and if we're Jews, we have even more. Ashreinu matov chalkeinu, to be happy that we can be partners with the creator of the universe and bring to fruition, manifestation, what Abraham began. Avamon goyim, that all the nations in the world should repay the creator. How do you repay him? With happiness. That's all God wants from us, to be happy. Happy doing the right thing. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, as I said, I put up this class in Vayera on the internet, so you can see the first class. But tomorrow I will give Bli Neder, with God's help, a class in the Torah portion. Shalom, thank you. And thank whoever it was that wrote to me and told me that I made a mistake. So tomorrow will be different. Mashiach now. Oh, I got a joke. Want to hear a joke? I'll tell a joke. We have 10 minutes, huh? Maybe this will make up for the fact that I didn't make it. A man, listen, this is a good joke. A man, he's 120 years old, and he knows he's going to die very soon. So he wants somebody good to give a eulogy at his funeral. So he looks up in the whatever's yellow pages, whatever it is, looks it up, and he finds that Shmerel, the eulogizer. So he goes to Shmerel. He says, I understand you give a eulogy. He says, yep. $5,000, $500, or $50. Which one do you want? So, well, 5,000. What do I get for $5,000? Says $5,000. I praise you a lot. I cry 10 times, and I make sure that everyone in the crowd cries. So, okay, that's pretty good. What about $500? Says $500. I praise you a little bit. I cry once, and maybe some people will cry, maybe not. That's not part of the deal. Okay, that's $500. What do I get for $50? So for $50, I say the truth. Have a good day with Moshiach now. God willing, tomorrow, 8:15 in the morning. Chassidus.